Welcome back to the Arbitrage.Run show. I'm your host, Donkey Teeth, joined by the star of the show, Kevin from Arbitrage Racing. What's happening, buddy?
Hey, Donkey, how you doing, man?
Good. How's the week going?
Pretty good, pretty good. Having some fun, seeing what these people who lend out, or I guess the borrowers, we'll call them, how they're having fun with their horses. So hopefully we can get a win, get them the joy of winning a tournament with one of them. But yeah, that's obviously the news of the day.
Right. So we're recording this on Wednesday, Eastern time, I should say, like Wednesday afternoon. And lending did just drop a few hours ago. So yeah, it's pretty exciting. It's exciting to see. I know, as always, there's some critical, I guess, critics out there on Twitter and in Discord and all that about the way that it's been handled. And even you kind of messaged me about like, oh, there's no search function to search for horses in the lending pool. And my reply to that was that I mean, it's by design. They don't want. I remember I did a user research study on lending. It was probably 2 months ago, and they asked me, if I was going to be upset if it was released in this type of form, very bare bones 50-50 split. And I said, well, I wouldn't be upset. There's it's better than having nothing. I'll adapt to it. But what I would probably ask how I would use it, and I said I'd probably use it like we use the stud farm right now and make deals with people that I would like to lend our good horses to that maybe are second tier down, and tell them when we're putting them in, and then they try to snipe them. And so I think they took that kind of feedback. That's not what they want. They want this as a new user onboarding in this first variation of lending. And so they don't want you necessarily clicking through all of the horses and having the savvy users that are experienced picking all of the best horses out of the pool and leaving, dog crap for new users.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they're even thinking about things like this and asking the community for feedback, I think, is a really good step forward that they can replicate throughout many other evolutions in the game. But it is kind of fun. You get, I think, just a random 5 horses that are in the pool, and then you can refresh and get a new 5. So it's kind of exciting, like opening a pack. I guess you could compare it where you don't like it, you open it again, and then when you do see that really good one that catches your eye, you jump on it before somebody else does. So it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, could you imagine refreshing and seeing billions there? It'd just be like Christmas.
Man.
Yeah. So yeah, we've lent out some horses, and it sounds like the second version is going to be coming pretty soon, based on what Facundo said. So I think in our development of the Arbitrage.Run site, we're going to add in a lending page where, much like you can come in right now and request a breed with one of our horses or build your own offspring, you'll be able to come in and request to borrow one of our horses. And hopefully they add that functionality where we can do 60-40 split or 30-70 split with some of our horses that we might actually be running ourselves. But if somebody makes us an offer and that we know that they know what they're doing, then we may accept that kind of stuff. So
yeah, one thing I've liked too is like people have borrowed our horses and reached out. I know you had someone reach out asking how you wanted it run, if there was some kind of strategy you wanted to test. That's really cool of like the community taking that initiative and trying to, I guess, learn from you, and also just taking in the account of what the owner would want with borrowing that horse.
Right. There's a certain level of respect when you're dealing with higher up horses. If we were to lend out, say, an Evergreen Gates or something like that, we might not want the person running it at 1,000 meters, right?
Right. Yeah, they could test it out. I guess there's some people in the community who think that Evergreen would crush at 1,000 as well. I won't mention any names, but I don't disagree. But yeah, we haven't tested just due to opportunity cost there. But maybe that person can borrow an Evergreen Gates and test it out if they want.
So I think that this is a good spot to mention here at the top that we are going to do something somewhere in this show. It's going to be a surprise, but we're going to announce that we're going to be lending at a certain time, Thursday night, Eastern time. We're not going to say what time right now, but there will be one of our premium horses going into the lending pool. I don't know how that actually works. We're hoping that one of our listeners gets to the spot in the show here that we say the time and is able to get on at that time and refresh and find the horse. But we'll see. Yeah, we'll see how that all works out.
Yeah, at a minimum, we want to keep this involved and make it a segment in the show where eventually, hopefully, there's a more streamlined way potentially to get the horse borrowed. So we'll try to keep it interactive and reward people for listening to the show and kind of sticking through it. And then hopefully they can get to run one of our better horses.
Right. As it evolves and there is direct lending, then maybe you'll be tossing your public wallet address in the comments of the YouTube show or something like that, and then we'll just send that horse off if you happen to win the draw or whatever. But yeah, that's going to be happening sometime in the show, so keep listening. And just before, we're going to spend the show diving into some Twitter questions this week, because there was one question that got asked several times and had tons of likes, and I think it's a really fun topic. But before we do that, just a quick update on Arbitrage.Run. We're still working on historical pricing. We're going to have a whole page where you can go in and see all of the historical pricing and kind of get a gauge on where you might need to offer and what we might accept for some of these horses. That's going to be very useful. And as I said, we're going to be looking at that lending page also, and hopefully we get that launched when ZED does launch direct lending. But Kevin, let's dive in on some of these Twitter questions. We've had a lot of really good questions over the past couple of weeks, so I'm happy to spend a little bit more time on these this week. The first question that we're going to be going over here is from Barracuda 34 Stables. And this question got a lot of likes, and coincidentally, there was a couple other questions very similar to this. This is the one that I was talking about. So Barracuda, Kevin, he wants to know, what would you do if you were starting a stable from scratch with just 0.1 ETH? And then the other two questions that were similar to this were asking essentially what you would do with a half an Ethereum starting a stable and then 2 Ethereum. So we're going to kind of go through each scenario and have a little back and forth here on this.
Yeah, I think this one actually I think the actual ZED account responded to this one, so we really didn't have a choice but to respond to this. But yeah, I think it's a good question, and it's interesting that it got asked at the 3 different levels, kind of the casual player who wants to put 100, 150 bucks in, and you have kind of the one who I'm going to try it out and take it serious for a bit, and then you have the 2 ETH investment, which is, I'd say, someone kind of aping in a little bit. So, I mean, starting with the 0.1, I think ZED is in a really interesting spot where the tournaments are pretty evenly distributed across a bunch of different breed types and Z numbers. So obviously at 0.1, you're going to want to target one of those more niche tournaments and assume that ZED's going to keep with their tournament supply of these pacer type tournaments because I mean they pay out the exact same as I'll call it like a Nakamoto or low Z race or tournament. So personally, I would take the 0.1. I'd find a cheap but strong base ability type horse for me, and then make it a filly or a mare, and then you can use the stud sniper to find someone putting in a pacer or maybe a high Z, really targeting one of these more forgotten about tournament types, and use your filly, match it with one that has had some proven success either at the pacer level or at the Z268 level. A lot of times these go in at, I mean, close to minimum or around it. So maybe the horse cost you 0.03 and the breed cost you another 0.03, leave a little bit on the table. And then you just enter and have fun in these specialized tournaments. I think that would be my strategy. How about you, Donkey?
Well, I think there's a few different ways that you could answer this question, and you're kind of answering it from your shoes and what you would do, coming in where that edge might be at this moment in time. I think I am probably answering it more from the place of this idea that you have to be coming into ZED right now looking to have fun. It can't be like you're looking for short-term profits. You could have this vision of where ZED is going and looking at it as an investment, but as like a true new user, there's so much to learn in this game. The learning curve is so steep right now, and it's going to be changing too, that I don't think I would spend it. I don't even think I would spend the 0.1 if that's my budget, and that means like that's a strict budget and that means a lot to me and I don't want to lose it. Maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, I agree with your answer. But right now we've got lending open, and you can go in and for free you can learn the game and you can have some fun and you can see if Zed is for you or isn't for you. Maybe you make a little bit of money, maybe you don't. But I don't think I think we need to be coming into this game. New users need to be coming into this game with financials being kind of a secondary. Like, learn the game, see if it meshes with your personality, if you like it, if you like the community, which ties back into all the toxicity in the community and stuff like that. But you've got this opportunity now, and this is why lending is so great. Really, you could create 3-4 different stables, and you could borrow 4 different horses, and you could go through and run those, and have hours of fun each day and learn the game. I think that the hard part is, like, even at that, you don't know what you're looking at when you get those 5 horses to choose from, or you refresh and you have 10 horses to look at. So even that is a part of the learning process. Like, what are these horses I'm looking at? What does it mean? Where do I go to see what these horses are and stuff like that? So I think we'll all have a tendency to answer this type of question with our own biases, everything that we know about the game. But a new user has no idea what half of the stuff that you even just said. Like, what is a pacer? What is a pacer tournament? What are these conditional tournaments? What is this prize pool? Like, none of it means anything. So I think that there has to be like this base foundation of learning all of these basics and starting to connect with people in the community that do know that kind of stuff. But I think what the person was asking really in this question was the answer that you gave, and I don't disagree with that. I think I was looking through earlier today, and I think the female exclusive Nakamotos are incredibly cheap right now. Like, the first thing I went to was legendary Nakamoto females, thinking, well, this high base ability, and you can do exactly what you said, mash it into cross or pacer or 268s or whatever, and have a decent chance at competing immediately. But the price is still relatively a big portion of that budget of 0.1. You're still looking at probably paying 0.5 even for the floor. But if you go down to exclusive, like, you're talking about 0.15, 0.2 that you can spend. You can snag like 3 of those from Good Blood. They're not going to be anything special, but once you breed it into this high Z pacer and start competing with 268s, you can compete. But I think the true answer to me is, don't spend anything. Just come in. We don't need people pumping $200 into the ecosystem, having a bad time, losing it all, and being run off, because so easily the spigot could be turned off on these pacer tournaments and 268s, and there could be a shift. We don't know what the new class system is going to look like. We don't know what any of it is going to look like. So something else to keep in mind here, right?
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting, right? We have better ability to predict what's coming, like on a shorter timeline. So you want to spend this time to learn the game and understand what you're looking at. Because I think if we all look back at our first horse we bought, we kind of hate ourselves for it, but you learn. And now there's a unique experience where you can race other people's horses and learn that way. But at the same time, you don't want to drag your feet too much, because the strategy you have in place could get lapped if they change how much money they're throwing towards these pacers. So it's almost like we feel good about the next 2, 3, 4 weeks of keeping the same cadence of 15,000 a day, maybe 1 or 2 a week, catering to these type of horses. So that's where I was coming from with that. And just don't rush into it. But if you see one, and it's, I think what you were saying with it being exclusive or even like an elite that has really high base ability, we implemented it this week for that 268 tournament, where we had just some horses that were okay. They're good A-shape horses. And one of the really good Z268s popped into stud. I think Perky Compelling God was the name. And it was a mid, and popped in for like 0.06 or something, which is a lot for a Z268. But we were able to make that back almost immediately in that 268 tournament, because we had a horse make the final that we bred with that. So that's an example of, once you know what you're looking for and what you're doing, of how that can be a success story. And then there's going to be another pacer tournament next week, maybe, or another 268, and you can just keep doing it while they're pumping these out.
Right. If you consider almost as like, think of a professional poker player trying to build their bankroll. I mean, somebody coming in with 0.1 can't necessarily take those types of shots that we can, because, we've been very fortunate and built that bankroll up. And we essentially have a large budget that we're putting into focusing on these other areas and building our stable out just so we're protected. This is something that I think that we should address, Kevin, because people have asked this Twitter question before. What do we think of large stables competing in 268s and Pacer and cross stuff like that? And from my point of view, and then I'll kick it over to you. First of all, we are playing this game first and foremost because it's fun to us. That's why we got into it. And from my point of view, that's why we've been successful. It's because we weren't looking necessarily to find every single edge and draw money out of this ecosystem and all that. It was fun to me. And that's why I played the game. And I was fortunate enough to get really deep into it and learn enough that I did profit from it. But that's why we're playing. And so when there's action in the 268s and the Pacers and the crosses, and there's not a whole lot else to do in the game, we're going to go and try to have some fun there. And then at another level, we are looking to have a balanced stable that is hedged no matter which direction Zed goes. So if there is this curveball that I don't think is coming, where everything starts to be focused down here in the 268 and the Pacer and cross level, well, at least we've dedicated some time and resources to that, and we've built our stable out at that level too, right?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. And then the other piece is, if we are buying these breeds, then the market of people supplying these, they're going to be getting rewarded for that. Like this horse I was talking about earlier with the Perky Compelling God, I think it was bred for like 0.01, and then they made 0.06, 0.07 racing it. It's a really good Z268, but then they bred it, they put it in the stud for 0.07 or 0.06, and we took some of those. So those sold out, and they made, I mean, you do the math, 0.2 times 0.56, they made 0.11 from one cycle of us breeding with it. So the more you see bigger stables and money coming into the Z268 space or whatever space we're talking about, the people who were already there are going to get rewarded and be able to take those funds and reinvest like we are, or go elsewhere with them.
Right. It's supporting the ecosystem just in a different way is my perspective. And on all of this stuff, sure, you can put a negative spin on it and say that large stables are, again, not leaving any space for smaller stables. But then on the flip side, what if this person is that new user that came in, put down 0.1, bred Perky Compelling God? Maybe that's its only horse, and it's done well in tournaments. I don't know what this horse has done financially. Let's see. It's 1.08 profit racing, and then it just came in and made call it another 0.11 off of us in stud fees. And now that person's bankroll has grown. It's all gravy now, right? They're in the green, and now they can decide on what their next move in this game is. But yeah, here's those three horses that we bred, and they did pretty darn good in that 268 tournament, didn't they?
Yeah, I think they all made the semifinal, and one made the final. So we're pretty much broken even on those breeds. But yeah, it kind of goes back to that original strategy of, if you have a mare and you can be patient with A, the mare you buy, and B, what horse you snipe out of the stud, you can make immediate impacts in these tournaments. They are really nicely rewarded for how much you have to pay for a Z268.
And then going back to what I said, because I said this in the first episode, and I really do hope that the people that are listening to the show are likely deep into Zed like us. I hope that they're listening to this and they're asking these questions, not necessarily for themselves, but to bring new users in the game and, give them some sort of guidance. And I think this is a really tough thing to do, to do exactly what we did without having all of this base knowledge. So get educated, watch some of Chateau Zed's stuff, dig in on whatever you can find of beginner material. Poseidon actually put out some nice beginner guides. And actually, teaser here, Inferno's talking about putting out, he's going to do the whole beginner new user experience and write a whole guide as if he was a new user to share with people. So that kind of stuff is so valuable. We're trying to contribute a little bit higher up the food chain in hopes that this type of stuff trickles down, and maybe it sparks ideas like, we don't know everything, right?
Yeah, we're just evolving day by day.
Okay, so anything else here on the 0.1 budget or this that you want to talk about with Perky? I mean, I guess to this point, Kevin, we had a blast with these breeds.
So fun. Yeah, we were like flaming a Griffey, and we were just, that discovery and like having a new horse is the best part of the game, hands down. So just having that and having it at a different level is still so much fun.
It is, yeah. So yeah, that night when we raced these three was awesome. But let's dive in on that second question then. If you're looking at it, I think there was a little bit more to this question other than just having a zero point 0.5 Ethereum budget, right? Okay, let's look at this one next. What would you guys do with 0.5 in the current market? Advice for smaller stables: use it on a premium breed, try to find a decent paid racer, buy cheap knock blood. What are you thinking here on this, Kevin?
I would not touch a paid racer right now. At least with that budget, I think let's wait and see. Let's wait for the market to come back a little more towards paid racers before investing in that. Because if you have 0.5, you're going to use pretty much all of that trying to get a decent paid racer. And as we've seen with these scoring systems in the tournaments, like progressive is just horrible for a horse with any kind of variance. So I'd probably target that. Target those stable horses who really just have that stability you need to consistently place in the top 5. And then I always lean on getting a female because I feel like I can do a better job sniping and being patient on that one breed, and then you get to keep it in-house. So I'd probably spend, I don't know, 0.1 to 0.2 on pick your distance preference. I think there's a case to be made for sprinter, mid, and distance. So I would probably I think mid's a little easier. So I would target that and then wait for your perfect match to show up in the stud. I would never go all in on your budget. Leave a little bit for live to fight another day, right? And nothing's a guaranteed in this game. But I think you can really take that 0.1 strategy and apply it many times. I get more bullets in the chamber, or maybe go up or go down in Z a little bit to go to Nakamoto or something. But that same strategy can really be applied to 0.5 as well.
Right. So if we look at this question, maybe not necessarily as a new user, I think the new user answer, if you're dying to put money in and you want to get some action, I think that you're right. You should take a piece of it. And it's a little bit more feasible if you've got a 0.5 budget to say, okay, now I'm going to put that 0.1 out there, versus if you've only got 0.1, it's really difficult to be putting money in and then like you're tapped out. And so, well, I got nothing left for breeding. I ended up with a terrible horse. Now what? Well, now you're back in the lending pool, which is where I'm saying you should have started anyway. And just maybe you make a little bit, maybe you can save up and put a little bit more in. But if you got 0.5, then you can put that 0.1 out there, learn something, have some fun. If you roll snake eyes or crap out, you still got your 0.4 left and you can reassess and see, because the game's going to look different in 2 weeks. So that's how ZED works. And this is really, really a game of adaptation. Somebody alluded to, the question, I think Jack, our buddy Jack Sunny Days, put on Twitter today, if you're upset about variance horses and your variance horses, imagine what arbitrage racing is feeling, which of course it's an easy comeback. Like, okay, arbitrage racing is making a ton of money still. And, we were hedged against that, but a lot of our variance horses are not anywhere near as useful as they were. But when we look at stuff like that, it's just like, okay, what can you do? This is what happened. And we still enjoy the game. We're still having fun. And, we kind of knew that was a possibility in the first place, right?
Right. Yeah. We knew we were over leveraged on those types of horses. And what's interesting about the game, as long as ZED is still putting as much into it as they are, a nerf to one type of horse is a buff to another, right? So you can kind of think about ahead of the game and think about, all right, yeah, U's are doing well right now, but where's my weak spot as a stable? Not to get too off track, but yeah, so we were kind of ready for a nerf of those. And now maybe it's a time to buy U's. I don't know, because they're definitely undervalued for how much they can win because there's just no tournament for them.
Of course, as always, not financial advice, but the saying applies to ZED just like everywhere else. There's always a bull market somewhere. So like you said, yeah, if something's getting nerfed, something else is naturally going to have to be boosted. And, it's just trying to find the holes in your stable. If you are building a big stable, of course, all of this goes back to that initial premise that I kind of laid out there in episode 1, is that it really, we can say what we would do from our point of view and what we're trying to build and the way we see the game, but you have to decide that for yourself, what you're trying to build, how you envision your stable growing. Do you want a massive stable? I don't know if you do, because it's a lot of work. Trust me. We put a lot of time into this, and it really does have some sort of negative effects on just naturally when you put this much energy into a game. The balance in the rest of your life, it becomes difficult. So I don't know if everybody wants that. It's fun, we're having a blast, but maybe you want a smaller, easier to manage stable. Those are all things that you have to think about when you're making these decisions, because that vision that you have affects every choice that you make. So back to the question here, 0.5 budget. I think, assuming that this is not, a make or break, like, oh, if I put this 0.5 in and then I'm out of the game if it doesn't work out, I think I still believe that the good racing, well bred, well aligned 2.0 exclusives and elites are undervalued. And the stud market, like we said last week, has cooled off. So, yeah, you go buy a female that is maybe has some potential and coming from good 2.0 blood, and watch Studmaster, and there's good deals all over the place, and snipe a breed. Maybe you spend 0.2 or something on a decent elite, and then breed with a really good looking 2.0 elite stud for like 0.15, and you still got 0.15 left to spare, and you've taken a pretty good shot that's going to have a chance in these cross conditionals, and maybe you get to race in the Z11 to Z20 thing tomorrow. I think that's another thing, Kevin, right, is looking at that schedule coming up, because everything is so short term. And I think these people are asking this question. Like, if you're looking at how to put 0.5 into the game, you probably should be looking short term as the next week's schedule, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, I like that they started doing it in 2-week bands, so you could plan a little more. I remember back just a couple months ago, we didn't know when like the next maiden was going to be. You're trying to plan your breeds, deciding when that is going to happen. So I like that evolution. And then the other advantage, like you touched on, with buying a female is stalk Studmaster, and you can choose your own adventure with like an exclusive female. You can say, all right, I'm going to take this and breed it with a Z268 that pops and play in that bucket, or I want to do a Z20 elite because I want to play in the cross market. You can pick your adventure a lot better with a female than buying a stud or a stallion who you're going to try to stud and hope people breed with that. So I would definitely pick the female side. And then where you want to play depends on your preference. But there's a lot of tournaments, and they're all giving the same payouts at this point. I wouldn't necessarily bank on that in the future, but if you're playing a shorter term game, that's definitely the play.
And to speak to longer term, I do, again, not financial advice, but I do think that, like, I'm looking at Genesis Finis earlier today. They are so cheap. And going back to the new class system and everything Facundo said about progression and Genesis horses, long term, I just don't see, if there's progression and it's more friendly to Genesis. I mean, he said everything that they build out is going to be more friendly to Genesis. I don't see how these there's some that aren't like total glue that are there at the floor. I think that if your time frame's a little bit longer, maybe you look at those. You can breed those out still too. And then the other thing here, Kevin, that we just talked about yesterday, looking through, because we were looking at what we want to spend on. I can't remember what the horse was, but we're looking at horses that are about to reset. And it's like, should we breed this one? Yeah, probably. It's coming from really good blood, but it's a long shot. We don't want to spend too much. Oh, we've got this legendary Buterin that's coming from, it looked pretty decent. I think it was Loves of Fantasy and File Format were the parents. So it's a legendary like Z13 or something like that, colt or stallion. We think we bred it. So if you can go through and find a horse like that that's coming from good blood or has like a Z1 or Z2 parent, and it's out there on the market cheap, buy a stud too. And then you don't even have to worry about like spending the time to follow Studmaster, and you can breed it in-house for 56% discount. And you can take these lottery shots at cross or pacer or wherever you want to attack at a much more defined risk, right? We're going to spend like $15 on those breeds.
Yeah, the NAC minimum really adds up, but it does seem like we're playing that medium term game, that the next evolution of segmentation just makes sense is going to be by bloodline. So where the buy opportunity there would be those Finis or having the best Buterin, right? Like right now it's Buterin versus NACs, and they're extremely discounted because they most Buterans just don't have a shot against that type of blood. But if we're segmenting by pacer, by cross, by Z number, it makes sense. And arguably the order was totally out of whack, but Buterans are going to race against Buterans. So having the best of your blood type is going to be just as valuable, if not more valuable, than having like the best Z268. Now, I don't know if that's happening soon or in a couple months, but that is something that you can almost guarantee is going to happen at some point in ZED.
And that ties into, I'll say, supreme display of talent. Shout out to him. He reached out to us for some really premium breeds for one of his Buterin studs. And, I think it's not conventional, and it probably would seem silly, the investment that he wants to put into Buterins to a lot of people. But I love it. I mean, this is such a cool experiment. Of course, it depends on what your budget is, but yeah, I think that he could be getting out ahead of the rest of the field, looking at the future segmentation. If there's a huge pool of money, if the pool of money for Buterin only races is the same as Nakamoto only, yeah, that could be a huge advantage if you start building those bloodlines out right now when nobody else is really thinking about it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, let's announce the the lend that we're going to do. We're going to put who into the lending pool when, Kevin?
This week we're going to do, we hinted at it earlier, but Evergreen Gates going in Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to throw her in, obviously 4 days, 50-50 split. So hopefully somebody watching this can see that and it pops as one of their top 5 and they can snag it.
And should we say that if somebody that's listening to the show gets Evergreen and reaches out to us, we'll take 50% of the losses and let them race Evergreen wherever they want for 4 days? What do you think?
Yeah, for paid racing, for sure. We'll try to comp it like ZED should be comping it. Basically, we'll see how much was made in the first 4 days, and if you're getting hit harder than you should be, we'll comp make it even where it's a true 50-50.
Yeah, agreed. So yeah, we'll be doing this well, at least every week until it doesn't make any sense to do it. Right. We'll see how things evolve, but as we said, things move fast in ZED. But let's look at the last one here and then wrap it up, Kevin. So the last question here along these same lines was from our buddy iRock Racing, and he wants to know, I think the first part of this question is interesting too. With the amount of quality horses being generated from top bloodlines continuously with power creep, yet no change in the current class system and nowhere to go but a dead end, what's your advice to a new user with a budget of 2 ETH or below? So there's a little bit more context to this question. And I guess he's got a little bit of concerns about the direction that things are headed.
Yeah, I don't want to. A lot of what we said before can be applied just on a bigger scale to 2.0 or to 2 ETH and below. I think this is one where you can start thinking about a more premium 2.0 legendary type breed. I wouldn't recommend that for the other lower budgets because you just want to have enough left in the tank to do some damage. But with 2, you can spend half an ETH to 0.75 on a custom breed and then try to build out your bloodlines off that one foundational piece. If you don't want as much risk, you could find a nice 2.0 breed for under 1 ETH and use that as your cornerstone. But once again, I think you can scale in as you please. If you want to have a big stable, you can do the strategy we talked about with the 0.5 or the 0.1 and just do it many times. If you want a more, quality over quantity stable, you can pay for that premium 2.0 and implement the same strategy we talked about, where hopefully you get a filly and snipe your stud and then build your stable that way.
I agree. Yeah, I guess to address his question regarding the class system and the dead end, it does tie back into the idea of how quickly things can change and will change with ZED. I mean, we know a new class system's coming. I know that frustrates people to hear this soon idea and not knowing when, the uncertainty when you're making financial investments, but it's going to come. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly or how it's going to affect these horses, but theoretically, there's going to be a lot of different pockets to race these horses. So we've preached it before, but patience is the way. And if you're getting frustrated in this game, take a break. I've taken breaks before. I did a 30-day retreat, right, Kevin? I was gone for 30 days, and that's probably why I'm so optimistic about Zed, is because I missed one of the roughest 30-day patches in Zed when that new discovery came out, right?
Yeah, that was a fun month for myself, having to go through all that. But yeah, you came back and you were none the wiser, and you came back fresh, and then it kind of had a bull cycle to follow.
Yeah, yeah, I think we've got a good system together. But yeah, and lending is so great because now I'm texting. I've gotten a lot of people into the game, and they've gotten frustrated, and I've said the same thing to that. Well, take a break, and now is a perfect time to come back. You can come in and rent a decent horse that's new to you. You don't have to pay anything, and again, just racing a new horse is a lot of fun. So 4 days of racing a horse and switch it out. Maybe you got a couple stables you can do that from. There's going to be a lot of new fun stuff coming from Zed. I'm confident that there's going to be mistakes too. There's going to be more frustration, but you got to know what you're getting into here, right?
Yeah, I agree. And what goes back to it's got to be fun. The good thing with the class system, if there is one, it's that Zed knows it's broken, right? So they're very aware. They publicly said they're working on a new one. So at some point, we will get a new class system, and that'll bring a whole new slew of opportunities for a bunch of horses that probably feel left out right now. So who knows when that's going to be? I know Facundo has mentioned by the end of the year, or maybe even an early Christmas present, we'll have something. We'll see if that holds. But it is coming, and it'll be exciting times when that happens. But until then, if you have a big stable and you're not having fun, lending enables you to just list your entire stable and get 50% of the profits of people who are having fun playing the game. And if you are thinking about jumping in, yeah, you can start with lending and kind of wait for a more defined future before you spend your money. It's really a good combination to add into the game.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, I think we're at a point where we can wrap it up, Kevin. We hope that one of you guys gets Evergreen Gates for the next 4 days. Again, 11 p.m. Eastern time on Thursday. What is the date of Thursday? Is going to be September 1st. So Thursday, September 1st. You're listening to this. You probably didn't have a lot. Hopefully you listened to the show right away. But yeah, hit us up if you do get it and let us know how it's going. Hopefully you have a blast. And follow Kevin out on Twitter at Arbitrage Racing with no G. I'm at ZED Diamond Hands. Follow our at Arbitrage.Run account. Go check out our website, Arbitrage.Run. You can place a breed request. You can build your own breeds. We've got lots of horses that are bottom of the barrel that we aren't even paying attention to, that we'd probably let you breed for really cheap if you ask nicely. So send us some requests and hit us up out on Twitter. Until next week, Kevin, have fun racing, man.
See you, Donkey.